Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Neer, and I am pleased to welcome you to the Community Science and Technology Virtual Seminar Series brought to you tonight by Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. This seminar series is intended to introduce you to the world-class research that has been taking place right here in your community for 55 years. And normally it is held in person at a local library, but given the current unfortunate COVID-19 situation, we've modified the format and hope you enjoy this virtual seminar, and we welcome folks from outside of the Tri-Cities area. We expect to continue having virtual seminars about once a month from here on out for the foreseeable future. More information and registration for these seminars can be found on PNNL's events page, which is pnnl.gov/events. And I'd like to take a moment and do a couple of quick polls. So if you turn your attention to your screen, what best describes the stage of your career? I'd like to know, are you a student? Are you in your career? A lot of career level, a couple retired. Great, thank you. Okay, and also we want to know, where are you joining us from today? We've got some Tri-Cities, mostly Tri-Cities, some Seattle, and some Sequim. And we have one from other. We'd love to hear where you're joining us from, so you can use your chat window if you'd like to let us know that. Take just another moment here. Okay, great. Thank you. A lot of people from the Tri-Cities area tonight. So we appreciate your feedback. Thanks so much. At the end of tonight's talk, it would be greatly appreciated if you could take our brief survey. The survey link is shown here on your screen, and you can also copy and paste it from the chat window into the browser of your choice. For your convenience, we'll display and share the link again at the end of tonight's talk. We really appreciate you taking time to give us your feedback. We want to make sure that you see value in these seminars, and we will make improvements based on your feedback. This is also your opportunity to sign up to receive emails from us about upcoming seminars. So if you'd like to hear more about those seminars that we have coming up once a month, go ahead and go out to the SurveyMonkey link and give us your contact information, and we'll make sure to add you to our distribution list. Now, before you learn more about tonight's topic, your presenter is going to give you a brief overview of the National Laboratory System and PNNL's missions. You will also learn more about Battelle, the operator of PNNL since 1965 and the Tri-Cities' largest employer, and its staff, and how they take pride in being excellent community stewards through philanthropy and volunteering. And that includes tonight's speaker as well. So now let me introduce tonight's presentation and speaker so we can get started. Tonight's presentation is Engaging the Future STEM Workforce Through Their Teachers. Your presenter is Allison Colatello. Allison has spent her career engaging in multidisciplinary research aimed at understanding and balancing our need for electricity and to preserve the environment. She is also passionate about STEM education, working with PNNL's Office of STEM Education to develop and execute signature programs, including the Teacher-Scientist Partnership. Welcome, Allison.
Thanks so much, Megan, and thank you everybody for joining this evening. Let me share my screen, and hopefully this goes well. It's always a challenge with Zoom. So I really want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us tonight. And I wanted to just provide a little bit of background about myself and why I get the opportunity to share with you one of the programs that I'm really excited to be able to participate in here at PNNL. My background is in fisheries biology, and the work that I do at PNNL really focuses on understanding how our water power systems impact fish populations in the rivers that they're located in. And the work that I do is very interesting because I can see a direct impact that I have on the community and the environment. But one of my other passions is sharing my science and talking about the work that I do to a diverse set of audiences. And so I really look forward to opportunities like this where I can share the work that I do with you in the broader community. And the work that I'm going to talk about today is not mine alone. I can't take credit for most of it, but it's been more than 30 years of contributions from individuals from both within PNNL as well as our external partners. In the last few years that I've been involved, we've had strong collaborations with the Educational Service District 123, which is located in Pasco, as well as the Mesa First Nations, and some really passionate educators from some of our local school districts. The work that I'm going to talk about today has been funded in part through contributions from the Washington Climb Time grants, as well as the Association of Washington Business. Within PNNL, the Teacher Scientist Partnership Program that I'm going to speak about today is stewarded by our Office of STEM Education, which is led by Evangelina Shreve. In the Office of STEM Education, while we have a number of fantastic education specialists, they also leverage opportunities to work with science and technology staff like myself to execute along PNNL's STEM education strategy. And that's why I have the privilege of being able to share with you about this program today. And of course, there's been a number of PNNL researchers that have been involved in this program, sharing their science with teachers from our local community. So as Megan mentioned, PNNL is one of the Department of Energy's national labs. There's 17 of us across the country, and PNNL is really ours here in the Pacific Northwest. PNNL is very unique from the other labs in its location and the way that we address challenges that are kind of stemmed here in the Pacific Northwest, but have broad national and international implications. We're also unique in that we have the only marine sciences lab located in Sequim, Washington, which is out on the Olympic Peninsula. As Megan mentioned, PNNL is one of the largest employers here in Central and Eastern Washington, and more than 4,000 of our 4,700 employees are located here in the Richland campus, which is where I reside. But we also have growing communities in Seattle, Sequim, and Portland. As Megan mentioned, PNNL has been operated by the Battelle Memorial Institute since 1965. This is pretty unique amongst the other national labs, being managed by the same organization for more than 50 years. And because of this strong management approach and structure, we've really been embedded in the Tri-Cities community. The nature of the work done at Battelle is really uses STEM as a foundation to build that business. And the researchers and professionals that work for Battelle are using STEM expertise every day to really drive our invention. And this drives our conviction that all young people really deserve a strong STEM education, which aligns with PNNL's mission to improve that STEM education opportunity for all students. Along the lines of these investments into the community, Battelle has contributed nearly half of their $28.5 million in philanthropic investments to STEM education here in the Tri-Cities community. More broadly, when we talk about the contributions of Battelle to the broader community, in the last year, we've seen more than 30,000 Team Battelle volunteer hours for more than 56 community organizations. But what I really want to talk about today is our STEM strategy. PNNL has their own STEM strategy, which is really focused on building strong foundations in STEM literacy, increasing the diversity, equity, and inclusion in STEM, and preparing the STEM workforce for the future, particularly for the Department of Energy, so that we can continue to have a pipeline of scientists and engineers that can tackle the challenges that the nation faces. We really believe that every career is a STEM career, and so we focus our efforts on developing and enriching strategic partnerships, engaging students where the disciplines converge, and building computational literacy and STEM capabilities in our communities. When we talk about STEM workforce development, which is the main objective of my presentation today, Our goal is really to increase the number of students that are pursuing advanced degrees in STEM career pathways. We have particular emphasis for those that are historically underrepresented in the STEM fields, and these can include people of color, but also those with the pronouns of she, her, or they, and them that are really traditionally underrepresented. And our strategy is to accelerate the STEM workforce just to support the Department of Energy. We also understand that there needs to be strong STEM education for all our students, so that we can have a good citizenship of the world that's fueled by science and innovation. We all know that we can't go on social media or open a newspaper without seeing how science and innovation is moving our society forward. But we also recognize that we need a strong STEM capable workforce to help to enable our future STEM professionals. These include people that are in support roles like communications, trades, and business support that can help to advance the missions of the Department of Energy and the STEM workforce. So how did I get here? I'm going to take you on a little journey of how I landed at PNNL and in the career pathways that I'm currently in. I definitely came from a pro-science family, a family that was really supportive of education and science and STEM careers, but I didn't necessarily have direct role models that I could look to and see those clear career pathways of how I was going to get into the place that I am today. I'm one of the first people in my family to graduate from university and the first person to graduate with a graduate degree. And so the pathway to where I am now is not necessarily something that I would have predicted for myself. But during my high school experience in particular, I had the opportunity to get access to opportunities to see science in real time, to work side by side with scientists, to understand what their jobs looked like, what were the questions they were asking, and how science is done outside of a classroom setting. This is me on the banks of the Winnipeg River participating in an archaeology dig at a science camp that I went to when I was in 11th grade. This was really the first opportunity that I had to see the dynamic nature of science and how disciplines converge for a lot of scientists and engineers that are working in the STEM workforce. I had to integrate disciplines of geology and hydrology and anthropology to understand how people had used this site 500 years earlier. And through this opportunity and other opportunities that I gained after that, I was able to continue to see how science is done in the real world. I continued to have the opportunity to work side by side with scientists who are solving problems and asking questions that would help us to understand how humans are impacting the environment. And this really allowed me to get a better understanding of what opportunities there were available to me, and those were far beyond anything that I could have pictured for myself. I also benefited from having really strong mentors that were diverse and encouraging of me to continue to pursue these careers in these pathways, and continue to push me into ways that I wouldn't have necessarily chosen for myself. And ultimately, that's leading me to be a researcher here at PNNL to solve some of the most challenging, complex problems that we have facing our nation. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, the way that science was taught was very stovepiped. We learned about chemistry and physics and math, and not necessarily understanding how those weave together. But luckily, the research on how people learn is evolving, and that's impacting the way that we're teaching science in the classroom. Some of the really interesting research and really cutting edge research that's happened in the last 30 years has shown that there are a number of key findings that we need to use and leverage to influence how how science is communicated. And that's particularly improving our understanding of how people learn and retain information. And some of the research that's been done by the National Research Council has outlined 3 key findings that are really impacting the way that we need to teach science in the classroom to improve the learning environment. The first is that we're not blank slates. Even students, kindergartners that are joining into the school system, or all of you that came to this webinar tonight, we all come with prior knowledge about a certain topic. Some of you may be educators and are really familiar with the state learning standards, and some of you may be STEM professionals who know how science works in the real world. And in order to really enable learning, we need to uncover what those preconceptions are of individuals that are learning some new material and challenge them when appropriate, so that we can really help to create a great framework for building on these new concepts that we're presenting to them. The second key finding is that we need to engage multiple senses in the learning and teaching environment. Students need to be taught in a way that will create a deep background or foundation of the knowledge or the facts that we want them to come away with. In addition to understanding those facts and knowledge, they need to be able to create a conceptual framework of how these facts relate to one another. Almost if you would imagine a pegboard with a number of different hooks, students need to be able to connect those hooks together to form that framework and their understanding. And teachers need to be able to present multiple examples so that people can understand the same concept in multiple different scenarios. That really helps to enable the learning process. And the third takeaway, or the third key finding that we've observed, is that students need to be in control of their own learning and be given opportunities to be metacognitive, or to be able to think about their thinking and understand and track their progress towards mastering a new subject. And using this information, it tells us that teachers need to be able to provide opportunities for students to be metacognitive and to really think about and reflect on this learning process. And as these new ideas have come forward and this new understanding of how learning works, that we've really been able to update our state learning standards to be able to better prepare our future STEM workforce. So many states, including Washington, have adopted new learning standards to really reflect this updated way that we understand that people learn. Here in Washington State, the Next Generation Science Standards are those updated standards. And they have 3 main components. The first is science and engineering practices. The second is disciplinary core ideas. And the third is cross-cutting concepts. These new standards do a much better job of reflecting how STEM professionals approach their work. My work, for example, understanding how fish interact with hydropower dams, is not just by biologists alone, but I'm working constantly with mechanical engineers and electrical engineers and hydrologists to understand the multifaceted challenges around solving these problems of improving passage conditions for fish that are moving through hydropower dams. The other important element of these new science standards is that critical thinking and communication skills are interwoven with the content knowledge. These skills are really critical for success for students in college and university, as well as those that are entering into STEM careers. So how does this relate to PNNL's goals and our strategy? Well, we know that we need future STEM workforce professionals to be able to continue to address the missions of the Department of Energy. We also support the improvements. We want to see that students are improvements in the way that students are taught in the STEM fields, and we want to see students be successful in pursuing these careers in the future. And we know that directly engaging with students and showing them these opportunities and pathways is a key to the success. And PNNL has a number of different programs that we implement to be able to engage directly with students and make those connections to the scientists. But we also know that we need to have really good advocates in the classroom that are helping to continue to share this message with students and continue to keep them propelled towards these pathways to STEM careers. And so this is where the teacher-scientist partnerships live. Teachers are on the front lines of supporting our future STEM workforce. They're interacting with students on a daily basis, and they're really laying the foundation for a passion and interest in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so this program really helps to connect them with scientists at PNNL that give the teachers the opportunity to gain firsthand experience and knowledge about the work that's done at PNNL that they ultimately can take back and weave into their own classroom activities. This also creates a personal relationship between the PNNL researchers and the teachers that can pave the way for more interaction between STEM professionals and the students. This can be done through classroom visits, either virtually or in person, also internship opportunities and other ways that we can connect with those students and really help them to see the opportunities that are available to them. But scientists and engineers, we're not necessarily educators. We might be interested in sharing our science, but we're not necessarily familiar with the state learning standards or the resources that are available to teachers in the classroom. And so we've really identified that we need a bridge, somebody or some kind of function to be able to help communicate what we do, what I do in a meaningful way that can be impactful for the teachers. And so we leverage the Office of STEM Education and our education specialists to help to make that bridge and that connection between the researchers and the teachers. So as I mentioned, this program has been going on for a number of years. And for every teacher-scientist partnership experience, we expect that we can reach more than 1,200 students through this program. In the past 3 years, we've hosted 90 middle and high school teachers at PNNL through various different teacher-scientist partnership experiences, and it's estimated that we've impacted more than 9,000 individual students through these opportunities. So what is a teacher-scientist partnership and what does this look like? Well, at its core, we invite teachers to design a solution to a proposed problem that's aligned with PNNL's mission. This program, the Teacher-Scientist Partnership, has really demonstrated to be a powerful professional development opportunity for educators. This is unlike other professional development opportunities that they have, because we really ask them to immerse themselves in the scientific process and embrace the role of learner. We know that they're educators first, but we really ask them to set aside that hat for a while and think about what it is to learn new material and learn new science. This gives teachers also the opportunity to experience the nature of science as done at a national laboratory. For some of our teachers who are local teachers, they might not be familiar with the diversity of research that's done at PNNL and the questions that we're tackling. And so this allows them to get firsthand experience of understanding how different scientific core concepts and disciplines are applied to solving some of these really complex challenges. We also are really emphatic about making sure that the learning is interactive and not just lecture-based. You'll see in a lot of these pictures that we're getting out and getting into the environment, collecting information and data, and we try to not have too many PowerPoint presentations where we're able to really help get that hands-on experience that's so important to understanding how science actually works. And while we do ask the teachers to embrace the role of learner, we know that they are educators at heart. And so we work throughout the experience to connect the activities that the teachers are doing with their classrooms and their standards, and what is being taught in school, so that they can take these experiences and bring them back to their students as examples of how science is done and how different concepts are demonstrated in the real world. So at the core of the teacher-scientist partnership is PNNL's mission. And specifically PNNL, when we look at us compared to all the other national labs, we apply basic scientific discovery around chemistry, earth science, and data analytics to address challenges around energy resiliency and national security. And so a lot of the scenarios and the problems that we pose to the teachers are around these topic areas and including some of these core disciplines. So what does the teacher-scientist partnership look like? What could you expect if you were a teacher who participated in this program? Well, first, we want to set you up for success. We want to prepare you with the material that you're going to need to be successful in answering and solving these problems that we're presenting. So we first provide the opportunity to record observations and findings through laboratory record books. These are important tools for researchers to be able to document their findings and to be able to show progress. And so these are really important tools that we provide to the teachers as well. We talk about collaboration norms. It's important to challenge each other. One of our key findings around how people learn is that we have to understand preconceptions and challenge those. And so we encourage that in the partnership as well, that without any kind of healthy discussion, we're not able to move forward. And again, we really want the teachers to embrace that role of the learner, to really be taking in all of the concepts that we're sharing with them. And we introduce the teachers to the scenario or the problem, the challenge that we're going to ask them to solve throughout the week. And then we work with the teachers side by side to be able to get as much hands-on experience in collecting information to address the challenge that they have. We demonstrate and enable the teachers to participate in the scientific collection techniques and using the tools that we as researchers at PNNL use on an everyday basis. This shows how messy science can be, the challenge of data collection, and helps to understand that an experiment is not necessarily, we don't always know the answer. And so we really need to be able to overcome those challenges and be able to pull together information, disparate sources of information to answer the questions that we have. Throughout the experience, we invite the teachers into the labs, various labs throughout PNNL, to be able to see the diversity of research that is done, as well as the diversity of researchers and their backgrounds and how they got to where they are. This again provides more opportunity to expose teachers to the different experiences and pathways that individuals can take to get to STEM, a STEM workforce or a STEM career. And our experience culminates with a presentation from the teachers to their peers, as well as a panel of experts, for them to really be able to demonstrate what they've learned throughout the program and be able to make those connections back to their classroom and back to the state learning standards. So, as I mentioned earlier, this program has been going on for 30 years. And 2020 threw us for a loop. We were faced with the challenge of, can we meaningfully connect teachers to PNNL researchers without the ability to meet in person? Can we do this completely virtually? And luckily, we had some really great partners who were willing to take on this challenge and see how it would go. And so we invited 24 teachers to join us over the summer to solve some problems around data visualization and some fish tracking studies. And so we had to get really creative. We had to be able to take hands-on science to the teachers' homes so that they could do it in a socially distant and safe way. And so we created goodie boxes that we filled with materials that the teachers could use to go through activities that were aligned with the problem that they were solving. We did ask the teachers to get outside and collect information. You can see some pictures of teachers collecting water samples near a local body of water. And we also got them out there with just a piece of paper and a pencil to be able to collect information about the types and number of infrastructure in their neighborhoods. We also provided them with different materials that they could use to go through activities that we would typically do at PNNL. And we used online platforms like Zoom to be able to facilitate conversations and discussions around the information that we were learning throughout the week. Overall, everybody would have preferred to be in person, but we did receive a lot of really great feedback on how we were able to execute this year. A really important element of the teacher-scientist partnership is our after-action review. All the parties involved, the teachers, the researchers, the education specialists, they all have the opportunity to document what went well, what didn't go so well, and how do we improve in the future. And while we seek to continuously improve and get better and refine things, our consistent feedback over the past 30 years is that this is still a valuable professional development opportunity. And while the goal is not necessarily to impact PNNL researchers, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what the impact is on us as individuals. As somebody who is a practicing scientist themselves, this type of work really excites me and it reinvigorates me on why I was interested in science in the first place. Enabling learning and helping to develop the future STEM workforce is some of the most meaningful work that I'm able to do here at the lab. And I know a lot of my colleagues would agree. So what about the teachers? I can tell you the impacts on the teachers, but wouldn't it be better to hear from them directly? So we have the pleasure of having one of our teachers and collaborators here to share some of her experience in participating in the teacher-scientist partnerships. Jamie Whitney is a science teacher with the Kennewick School District. She's been a science teacher there for 19 years. And she's been a participant and a collaborator in the teacher-scientist partnerships. And I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to share a little bit about her own experience and how this program has impacted her classroom.
Thanks, Allison. So I am a teacher at Kennewick School District. I've been at Kamiakin High School for several years now. I teach life sciences mostly, some biology, and then I also teach anatomy and physiology, as well as environmental science. So I want to talk about three different things with how the TSP program has impacted me. I want to talk about ways that I've used this in my classroom. I want to talk about how I've been able to share this with my colleagues, and then why the teacher-scientist partnership is so unique among professional opportunities for science teachers. So some of the ways that I've used this in my classroom is that the ability to just bring a research project to my classes and be able to say, hey, this is going on right now. It's a high interest activity for my students. They're able to create, or teachers that I worked with have been able to create student-centered projects that really engage the students in their work. This is me in the picture, and that's my colleague, Allison Winward. She also came with me to one of these partnership programs, and we were able to develop some really amazing lessons that we were able to share with our students and share with our colleagues. This is one of them. This is another one of my colleagues' classroom. We were doing the fish tracking. And so she made the little fishies, and each student had their little fishy, and they were able to track the fish through the data that they collected on real life data websites that scientists were using. And then they were able to gather data and then generate a story about what had happened to their fish. And they were generating pages of information about what they thought had happened to their fish because they were so engaged in doing the work, looking at the data, collecting the data, figuring out what are some possibilities, what are some things that could have happened to their fish. It's an amazing opportunity to be able to share those kinds of things with my students. We were able to share good lab techniques. It's been a long time since I was learning how to be a science teacher, and being able to see lab techniques and lab tools that are used in the field, and being able to take those into my classroom and be like, okay, so when I was hanging out with the scientists this summer, this is what we did. And being able to share those stories and those opportunities with the students. Also using lab record books authentically. You can see my lab record books behind me because I'm using them even remotely. I've often used science notebooks in my classroom, but I've never felt like it's been a really authentic experience. And so understanding how lab record books are used, that they actually are using paper record books, that they cross things out, that they keep this record of their ongoing understanding of the knowledge, that has been a really powerful tool for me as well, is being able to say to the kids, okay, we did this last week, but now we've got some more information. So let's go back and let's make this a living document, and let's really use this in a much more effective way than I've ever done it before. And then ultimately, that idea of creating a STEM workforce, the idea of creating at bare minimum STEM literate citizens, the idea that choosing their STEM careers it can be a very flexible path. Allison likes to share her path to the fish as she took a bird walk through forensics for a little while. One of the physicists that we worked with, Weidong Li, he's a physicist, and he would get this expression on his face like, I don't know why I ended up working with fish. And the idea that you can do science and it can be such a flexible career. And then looking outward at all of those careers that can support a STEM workforce. When we came into the lab and we were able to see the photographers that worked in there, we were able to see the work of the graphic designers, we were able to see the work of the machinists, all of these people that help to create help to create our scientific society. And being able to share those, that you don't have to be a scientist cooped up in a lab in front of a computer. That's not likely to happen if you decide to pursue science. But having science in your back pocket can really make for a much broader career possibility for my students. And being able to understand that you don't necessarily have to go to college to be in STEM support, to support the STEM workforce. That there are lots of careers, there are lots of trades that support a good STEM workforce without necessarily needing to pursue that college pathway. Sharing this with my colleagues it's been a lot of fun. It helped that I had a colleague who came with me to the training, and then being able to take that back and share this, being able to have the time to create this opportunity, this lesson for our students, and be able to share those with other teachers and bring this research to them. I feel like not only has it made an impact for me and my colleague that came, but for the other 3 colleagues that we were able to share this with. And so that impacts more students than just the, however many are in my classroom at this time. And then being able to have that enthusiasm and that renewed energy for learning science. Again, it's been a long time since I was in the college classroom doing this kind of stuff, and being able to come back and remind myself that science is out there. A teacher from, I believe it was Walla Walla, who shared her experience, said that the scientists, they're really the rock stars of what we do. They are really the ones that we wish we could have this kind of relationship with, because we want to bring that stuff into our classroom. And this kind of leads me to my last point, is that this is a really unique professional development opportunity for science teachers. We get so caught up in our classroom in learning the pedagogy of how to teach science that we oftentimes forget that science is really cool. And being able to access that network of people, that network of researchers, that network of being tapped into current cutting edge research and how to bring that into my classroom. So I feel like going into the teacher-scientist partnership, being presented with real science helped me learn how to bring other real-world experiences into my classroom in a much more efficient way, that I'm able to to find science and to find that research and those phenomena that are really going to impact my students and really make science come alive for them. This is a really unique professional development opportunity. We don't get to do these kinds of things very often, and it has been a pleasure to be involved in this partnership and to work with the scientists and to work with the other teachers and help to bring this kind of stuff to my students. So.
Thanks so much, Jamie, for presenting today. And at the end, there will be opportunities if you have specific questions for Jamie about her experience and how this is translated to her classroom. So over the years and the feedback that we've received on the teacher-scientist partnership, it's been conversations with people like Jamie and continued engagement with them. But when we look at all of the impacts that we've had on teachers, we've really seen repeatedly that we see increased confidence in science content and the methods for teaching. We see increased awareness of the nature of science as practiced by real scientists. And we see increased beliefs in teachers' ability to develop successful engineering design challenges, to take these types of activities and integrate them into their classrooms. And finally, we've seen a development of an advocacies to others and the value of science education, to be able to trickle to their colleagues and their peers, to be able to continue to show and emphasize that this is important in our school systems. And ultimately, our goal is to impact the students. We want to be able to create that future STEM workforce pipeline. And for students whose teachers have participated in these types of programs, what we've seen through our interviews and surveys and our own observations is that the students that are impacted by this program have their own improved science attitude and confidence towards these STEM challenges, that they have increased opportunities and connections to real scientists. As Jamie mentioned, this personal connection and the ability to bring us into the classroom to show what a scientist looks like becomes really valuable and important for these students. We increase the opportunity and access to data and tools for students in their scientific exploration, as well as increased awareness about the career pathways that exist for them, both at a national lab and throughout other STEM employers, but also access to internship opportunities like the ones that I was given opportunities for that allowed me and propelled me into the place that I am today. And so I just want to leave you with one example of a student who is impacted by this program. And this is a photo from a teacher-scientist partnership from a few years ago. And one of the teachers that participated in this got to work with one of the researchers, one of our geologists at the lab, Franny Smith, and had a really positive experience and was so excited to go back into her classroom in September and tell her students about her experience and what she learned over the summer. And she showed her students this picture of her working with the scientists and other teachers and pointed to Franny as the scientist. And her students, her name was Jennifer, raised her hand and said, "Don't you mean to be pointing to the man? Isn't he the scientist in the picture?" And immediately that teacher, she needed to talk to Franny and tell her about that story and tell her about that connection of how she was able to uncover and show to Jennifer that women can be scientists as well. And immediately Franny wanted to go into that classroom and she wanted to meet these students and to further inspire them to be able to pursue these career pathways and see these opportunities that existed. And so Franny went into the classroom and she She went through a lesson and showed them some material about rocks and minerals, and to really get them engaged and interested in this type of science. And this really impacted these students, in particular Jennifer, because before she met Franny, she didn't know that this opportunity existed. And through this experience, the next person who came into her classroom, she proudly announced that she was going to become a scientist because women can be scientists too. And she also wrote a really sweet note that I'll share with you about her experience and the impact that Franny has made on her life and opening her eyes to the opportunities that arose for her. Dear Miss Smokorowski, thank you for coming to our classroom. We are so glad that you picked our class to come and visit and to take 2 whole hours of your job. You are the best scientist ever in the scientist world, but I mean it, you are the best. There is no one who could beat you at the best scientist ever. We are so glad that you came, but so glad. It is fun meeting you for the first time, and that was the best moment of my life. And this is what we want to see from these programs to continue to impact and inspire that future STEM workforce. Thank you so much for your time today. And now we're going to probably start the question and answer period. If you have any questions for myself or Jamie, we also have Karen Kneep of the Office of STEM Education, and we're happy to take any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I appreciate you taking time to discuss more about STEM. At PME for sharing more about your experience, the Teacher-Scientist Partnership also. We have about 40 people joining us tonight, and we do have some questions. So let's start with, what are the plans for the 2021 Teacher-Scientist Partnership?
So we're really excited and to get started for some new opportunities this next summer. For people that are interested, we do have an email address that I'll post in the chat box. If you're a teacher who's interested in joining us, you can join our distribution list and learn more about these opportunities.
Great, okay. And it seems like the Teacher-Scientist Partnership last summer was mostly biology focused. Is there any chance of getting physics or computational sciences for future TSP sessions? Yeah,
absolutely. Actually, last summer, we did have one on fish tracking, but we also had one that was just focused on data visualization. And so we worked with Nick Kramer, who's an excellent data scientist at the lab. And so that scenario was really focused on how do we collect good data and information, and how do we visualize it in a way that we can answer some really tough questions.
Great. And how much does the program cost teachers to participate?
So the program doesn't necessarily cost teachers anything to participate. In most cases, our funding partners are able to provide stipends to the teachers, including travel costs when they're able to come in person. Usually the teachers are responsible for paying for their STEM clock hours though.
And I think you touched on this, but what other topics have you focused on for TSPs?
In terms of scenarios, I guess is the question. That's my interpretation. So we've done a couple different ones over the last several years. We focused on data visualization. We focused on ways that we track fish movements through river systems. We've also looked at comparing different energy generation sources. So comparing development of a wind farm versus a solar farm. And we've also looked at groundwater recharge. So how do we take water from the river and store it for later when we might need it, like in the summer when the river levels are lower or it's hotter.
Thank you. And do you have to live here in the Tri-Cities to participate in a TSP?
Not necessarily. It depends on the objective of the teacher-scientist partnership and the specific experience, but we've had teachers from across Washington State, Oregon, and obviously with the virtual platform that allows us a lot more flexibility to have people join us from even further away.
And what grade level of teachers participate in the TSPs?
We do have different platforms or different designs depending on the grade level, all the way from K through 12, but most of our efforts have focused on middle and high school teachers.
Okay. And I think I have another question coming up here. How does a teacher become involved in the TSP if they're interested?
I will put an email address in the chat box, and so it's just a basic application form when we have opportunities available.
Great. And just checking the chat window here. Is there a way we can access some kits for kids too? I think those kits that you guys put together.
That's not necessarily something that we provide through this program. Karen might want to speak to some of the other efforts that the Office of STEM Education is stewarding that are directly providing materials to students.
Thanks, Allison. Hi, I'm Karen Kniep. I'm with the Office of STEM Education, and I have the pleasure of working with Allison on teacher-scientist partnerships. The Office of STEM Education primarily focuses our resources for students and teachers in grades 6 through 12. I know Megan shared in the chat our website, and there's resources available there. We're certainly working towards providing some additional hands-on resources to students given the challenges of remote learning. And that's a project we're working towards, and we certainly believe that as much hands-on STEM education we can provide, the better it will be for our students.
Great. Well, I believe that was our last question for the night, so I just wanted to thank everyone. Thanks again, Allison, for presenting tonight. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Karen. We appreciate your time. Believe we have a survey link that's going to be going out into the chat window. We encourage you to take our brief survey. Just let us know how everything went. You can also sign up for future seminars at the end. And also please note that we do have another webinar coming up on January 12th at 5:00 p.m. The presentation is Size Does Matter, Testing with Simulated Hanford Tank Waste by Phil Schoenwell. You can register using the link that's going to be provided in the chat window. Again, thank you so much to everyone who joined us tonight. We hope to see you when we have our additional seminars scheduled throughout this year, and we hope you have a great evening. All right, great job. That was wonderful.
Thanks, Jamie. You did great. That was awesome.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Seriously, that was so good.
It was really good.
Like, I loved hearing from you, Jamie, and seeing the visuals that you had were like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I want to take credit for that, but that was all my colleagues. So they actually were the ones who had the better student work. So I still.
Well, and that you guys documented it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's so great.
Yeah, it was great.
Sorry, Cassie, I was fouling up your
Oh, you're
document.
fine.
I was like panicking because that one guy was asking questions. I was like,
No.
Don't ask that.
no, and I was like trying to like reword it, and then I tried to move something, and then I accidentally deleted something, and I did Control Z to try to fix it, and I was like, oh god.
I want to know what are these
Crazy sometimes.
questions?
Oh, go ahead. It was.
He wanted to know, well, how can parents volunteer? Are you gonna? Can students get kits? Can parents get kits?
Oh,
Do you do things for grades 3 through 5? Do you? And I was like,
I think that's a woman. I know her.
oh, do you? Okay.
Her husband works at PNNL.
It was a lot. The really cool thing was that there was multiple STEM ambassadors who were watching.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Nikitha, Allison Thompson, Liz Stevens. I swear I saw somebody else too. I can't think. Anyway. Yeah, so that was cool because we had sent it out in the STEM Ambassador newsletter, and so I was happy to see a couple of them came.
Well, and hopefully that means we can get some new scenarios because it would be great to do like something with Nikita or other disciplines.
Yeah. Yeah. Megan and Cassie, you guys are pros, as always.
Couldn't do it without you guys.
That's right.
Totally flawless.
We like to work fast through those back end documents.
I know. Oh my goodness.
Well, this was really great. I appreciate everybody's time. Does anybody have any feedback on what we could do to make improvements in the future? How's the planning process? Anything that we could do to make things better?
I just want to say something like from the outside, it was like super easy to just kind of like slide in and find everything and all that stuff. So
awesome.
I thought it was fine.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate your participation for sure.
Yeah, you did a great job of organizing it and keeping everything on track. So appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really good. You guys, Allison, there was like no panic about when slides were due, right? Like none. We were like, what? These people want what? What? But it's really good because it keeps you honest.
Yeah, no, you have to keep us in line or else we'll just run all over.
Yeah, it's true. It was good. It was really good.
No,
I of course always want to see more like social media around these, but it's hard to find the right people on the right platform.
Well, they did end up putting it on LinkedIn and Facebook today.
Okay.
So on the PNNL pages, we have a meeting set with them, Cassie and I do, at some point in the near future to discuss how we can improve our marketing efforts on PNNL's social platforms.
Yeah, it's so challenging. I mean, I don't know. So yeah, I think that's great. And I'm really excited that Phil's doing it. I didn't know that until, I don't know, a week or two ago. So that's really, I'm excited because his topic, I think, could get a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think so too.
Because Charmaine's really got a lot of people.
I think she had 90 some odd people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I felt like this was great. And Allison, I don't know if you saw the participant list. I recognized at least 2 names of past TSP participants.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to dissect that to see, like I know my friend Eileen was on and I saw Claire Hoffner from AWB this year. I
Yep.
saw Allison Winward was on.
My principal came.
Oh, really?
Oh,
That's
awesome.
cool.
That's
That's
awesome.
fantastic.
I'm happy to send the registration list if you want to look over that.
Yeah.
Or the, I guess, attendee list.
Do you, in your post survey, do you ask people how they heard about the webinar? Is that one of your questions to like know if they came from social media or?
You know, I had it in my hard copy surveys that I used to do, and when I switched over to SurveyMonkey, for some reason it slipped off. So no, it's not, but I think I agree, it should be on there. So it's probably something that I'm going to be putting back on there before the next one. Because that was helpful. A lot of times we heard for the library ones, it was the Tri-City Herald a lot.
Because that might be able to help like prioritize where you advertise in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you guys get any feedback from the presentation, like more of the actual content and stuff, I would love to have that to improve in the future. So
Yep, I will send you a full summary and the survey results and all of that good stuff, and you know, just kind of summarize how many people were on and give you a list of the questions, those people who registered, all that good stuff.
awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Awesome.
This is
Thank you.
wonderful.
Nice work, Allison. Nice work, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you
It was
guys
very
so
nice.
much.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.